So what we're looking at here is just the basic view of a trial account to PowerOptions. We see our trial account expires in 14 days, full 14-day free trial. You can get that at any time. Just go to PowerOp.com. All you require is your name and email address. No credit card information is required. You can always check out the subscription info, information on the performance guarantee, and more. We might review that a little bit later as well. The PowerOptions tools are designed by a tab navigation system. From the main home tool, we can access the free webinars, free coaching sessions. We schedule a coaching session at any time. The Learning Center menu on the store for our basic products, my account features, and more. I want to start off today, before going through the other tools here and the other pods that we have available. I want to start off in the Learning Center. And the reason why is there's a free trial member that has emailed us recently. He put in his positions into the portfolio tools and he's tracking them. And he had some questions about some of the data that's displayed. We'll go show that in a moment. Actually, why not? Let's just show it right now. First off, so let me go to my portfolio and we'll go into the portfolios tool where we track our open positions. And this is just something we did on our last webinar on July 7th. We were looking at a covered call position on Fortinet. Now, normally I suggest to customers, whether you're using covered calls, linked positions, single positions, naked puts, buying calls or buying puts, I always like to use the stock analysis view in the portfolio. Although if I'm just tracking a single leg, again, a naked put, long call, a bought call, or a long put, I have sort of the information of where I stand right now and what my return is. But for linked positions, and even for those single positions, but linked positions, covered calls, married puts, collars, credit spreads, debit spreads, iron condors, the stock analysis view gives you these 6 additional columns over on the right-hand side, where we can see the original position cost for the covered call. It's the total outlay of capital for our 200 shares here of Fortinet at $71.66 minus the premium that we received. So we've took in, that 280 here. So our total position cost is $14,052. If assigned, the original return expected is 8.2%. Current liquidation loss, where we stand right now that the stock has moved up and our call is in the money, we could liquidate for 7.1%. But if we hold the position to July 28th and the stock remains at the current price, the future expiration value is not projecting a price, it's just saying if it stays at the current price, well, we'd make the full expected original return for this covered call of 8.2%. But there are other views you can access in the portfolios you're tracking positions. The Greeks view, of course. Now, this is just one position, but we can see the total running gamma, delta, theta, position theta total, vega, delta, and beta weighted delta as well. And of course, total position delta also, with factoring in the number of shares. So that's just a basic view, and it gives you a summary. As you have multiple leg positions, you can see the total Greek summary. Are you positive or negative on your delta? Where does your gamma stand total of all the different positions? If you're doing gamma scalping, gamma hedging, delta scalping, or delta hedging, you know all those terms. And if you don't worry about it. You're probably not trading a strategy where it's necessary to consider that if you haven't come across that term. Important dates. So just to know, when is my earnings coming up? We've got earnings coming up on 8/3 in 20 days. Well, that's past our 28th of July covered call position, so we're not concerned about that. If there was an ex-dividend date, we'd see that also, and then the last dividend payment, the annual dividend, and the total dividend yield. And of course, you can see if it's before or after market and whether that's been confirmed. And then in the options details view, and this is where the customer brought in a question. So in the options details view, the customer is actually tracking some cash secured naked put positions. And you have the range in the money, the current price, the probability that the position will remain in the money to the expiration date based on the current stock price, current volatility for the stock, and the option, the percent implied volatility range. Where is the option's implied volatility now compared to where it has been over the life of the option? And then, of course, the time and intrinsic value and the percent extrinsic value. The time extrinsic value and the percent time extrinsic value. Now, extrinsic value is, of course, the time value of your option based on the underlying security. But the user was asking, well, why aren't you basing it off the strike price? Well, that's the naked yield, the percent naked yield that we'd be looking at currently. Time value or percentage time value is typically based off the underlying stock price, not the strike price of the option. The naked yield is what we would look at when we were opening a new cash secured put. What is my premium that I'm receiving on the slightly out of the money put, most likely, based against the strike price, which would be my margin or requirement. Regardless of that, the customer followed up and asked, what is considered a high or low time value or percentage time value? Well, that does also depend if you're looking at weekly options. Maybe you're trading SPY or SPX with daily options, or if you're looking static 1 month out in time for cash secured puts or covered calls, for example, time value is going to be different. But we do have an interesting tool that's available to you. It's a statistics tool, the Optionable Stock Statistics page. So once again, I go to the main home tab here, and I'm going to go to Learning Center. And of course, you see some basic views, introduction into options trading, online investment courses, tip sheets that are sent out during the 14-day free trial, tutorials, the webinars link, strategy help pages, archive of the emails we send out every morning, those price watch alerts, mornings updates, market activity, ex-dividend dates, earnings announced this week, unusual option volume today report, and the basic glossary. The market activity view has about 6 general tools. Again, the earnings announced this week, ex-dividend, stocks are hitting their new 52-week highs, stocks that are hitting their new 52-week lows, market statistics, a view of today's stock and option market activity. Take a look at that in a moment. And then optionable stock statistics. The optionable stock statistics page gives us a breakdown of many of the search criteria that you can use in all strategies, both for the stock and for the options itself. So going across the entire universe of optionable stocks, we see that we have the minimum, the maximum, and the mean or average of stock last price, option bid price, option last price, and so on and so forth. But where it gets more important is you get down to some of these filters. What is the average earnings per share growth for all optionable stocks? It's 33%. So if I'm looking to screen for stocks that have a good earnings per share growth, what might be considered good? Well, maybe anything above 25%, just below the average for all optionable stocks here at 33%. Average dividend yield, percent range, and so forth. Now we start getting into the volatility. The average 20-day volatility for the underlying stocks is 0.39. 50-day volatility is 0.44, but the average implied volatility on all options is 1.05, even with the VIX being down as low as it was. The average put volume, average open interest. I think when you're looking up a stock, it's more important to compare it to the current option volume filter we have for that stock itself rather than the average, because as we know, SPY, QQQ, and NDX are trading many more contracts per day across the board, as opposed to a $20 or $30 stock that you might have just read about in the news that you haven't seen before that someone's pointing to good news to. But where I'm going with this, most important, the percent time value in this case, the average percent time value of all options. And yes, this is a little biased because it's for all expiration dates, whether they're leaps, whether they're 1 week out of time, or whether they're the daily options, as I mentioned, on SPY or SPX, for example. But since the average time value is 3.1%, my answer was, well, using this page, we can see what the average percentage time value is. So what is a good percentage time value? I'd say a good percentage time value. And because we have so many short-term options with all the weeklies and every option has the standard monthly available 1 month or 2 months out in time, so we have July and August standard expirations available for each, I'd say that this is a good average value across the board for all 30-day out options. Meaning that I'd consider something with a high percentage time value to be about 50% higher. So maybe around a 4.6, maybe 4.5% time value would be something I would consider high. What would be considered a low time value looking 30 days out in time based on this average? I'd say anything less than maybe, 2%, maybe less than 2.5%, but really about 2% or less. I'd consider that to be in the low range compared to the average time value across the entire universe of options. Now, someone joked with me once on the webinars and said, yeah, but what is the average delta of all options? The average delta of all options is going to be right around 0.5, naturally. When you look at an at-the-money option, for every stock, it's going to be right around 0.5, and then as you go further away, it goes down to 0. As you go further in the money, it gets closer to 1. So the average is always going to come out to about that delta of 0.5. But it's just a little joke. But things that might be more important are maybe the average theta, average gamma, but really most important is the percentage time value, maybe the average percent naked yield, also percent return naked for selling cash secured puts is a little bit different than the time value, honestly, but those are numbers to consider, and that's how you could do it. If you ask yourself when you're trying to run a search, what is a good volume or open interest to look for, you can gauge that based on the averages. What is a good implied volatility, or what is the average implied volatility? Use the average here as a basis for your searches. It's a place to start, but of course, remember, you can always send us an email, as the customer did, give us a call or schedule a coaching session for those types of discussions as well. So the Learning Center, again, market activity, and then optionable stock statistics. That's where you can look at those. The market statistics I had mentioned is a neat place to look at. It gives us some overall views of today's biggest industry gainers and losers, today's sector gainers and losers. Like I said, we saw that strong opening today. And then we saw some pullback. So a lot of things, technology fell, financial services fell, energy took a big hit later in the day. Actually, they might have started off lower. Individual stock gainers, pharmaceuticals, of course, Acadia was up there, and the losers were TELUS International. That's interesting. Opera Limited, Caribou Biosciences, Funko. Oh, they took another dip today. That's a shame. Applied Optical Electronics, just another one. But highest volume, as expected, as I mentioned. See SPY, Tesla in there. That's today's highest volume. The highest open interest. That's interesting on NKLA. Nicola, they must have been taking a drop recently. AMC, we know what they've been doing recently. And Allah, that's interesting. I like that. See, I'll explain that in a moment. Seeing a lot of the VIXs here for September and near-term July. But I like this August, and I like that September. EEM, the emerging markets ETF, that's interesting too. And then you have your put call volume ratios, number of stock advances to declines, that's not good, unchanged. So that ratio is a little bit lower. 59, 52 week lows, 391 year highs as well.